my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome to a worth the read, worth the hype. Should you read these books? These are some popular books that came out in the last month or so, and I've read them, and I'm here to give you my thoughts and tell you if you should read them or go ahead and skip them and move on to something else on your TBR, because we all have endless TBRs, and you do not want to waste your time reading a book that you're not going to love. So I have 6 books to talk about. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is one that I was super excited to read, okay? This came out, I think, at the end of July. I was so excited. I love this author, and that is a novel love story. If you guys know my channel name, Novel Life, a novel love story, it was like meant to be, right? I was like, this is the perfect book for me. And this is my 3rd Ashley Poston book. I have read The Dead Romantics, and I read The 7-Year Slip. And with this book, I gave it 4 stars. So, is it worth the read? I would say maybe. It depends if you're in the mood for this type of book. So, you're like, what does that mean? That doesn't help me. You're absolutely right. I'm going to tell you why I gave it 4 stars, and you can decide if it's something that will bother you or not. So, in this book, you see our female character. She's struggling with life, with friends, with trying to get it together, basically. And you see that she started a book club with a bunch of people from different areas, kind of like an online book club with her friend in real life. They join this online book club, and they start reading books together. And every year they go to a cabin or a little vacation together and just read and have all the cozy vibes, right? Well, this year everyone is busy doing their own thing. Life is lifing for a lot of people, and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go by myself. She takes her car from Georgia and she drives all the way up north. I think she's heading to upstate New York, if I'm not mistaken. And when she's on the way, she stops at this little small town and her car breaks down. All of these things are happening. It's pouring rain. She almost hits someone. Her car breaks down, it's not working and stuff like that. So she's forced to stay in this little small town for, I don't remember how long exactly, but it's an extended period of time, most of the vacation. While she's there, her cell phone doesn't work and all this stuff like that. And she's starting to realize these things about the town. Oh, this reminds me of my favorite book series. Oh, this character, I read about this character. Ooh, that name. And she starts piecing it together that the town that she rolled into is based off of her comfort series. The author has passed away. She's not writing anymore in the book. It was an unexpected death, so she left a lot of things unresolved. Not unresolved, but characters that should have got a story didn't get a story, basically. And I felt that if you are a book lover like me, you're gonna enjoy this book. It is so sweet. It's if you have that comfort book or a couple of comfort books or a comfort series, when you read that series, you just, it's like a big warm hug, right? And that means a lot to our female character in this book. So while it was good, and I love it for the sake of a book lover, I felt that it was just a day-to-day thing in the book, and nothing was progressing with her or with the story, because she was stuck in this town. And I have a feeling that's how Ashley Poston wanted to write the book, but for me it was just it wasn't as hard-hitting as her other 2 books. And I feel like it's kind of unfair to compare this to the other 2 books because it is very different, but at the same time those are the only 2 that I read by her. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I thought it was great. I don't think it was as strong as some of her other books, but with that being said, I will still continue reading her stuff. I will continue reading her books as she releases them because I really love them. So this one is one of those things, if it sounds good to you, pick it up. If it doesn't, skip it. But if you're a fan of Ashley Poston like I am and you've read a lot of her other books, I think you need to read it. It's a good book lover's book. The next book I want to talk about is Play Along by Liz Town 40. Now, yes, I am saying her name right. She said that that's how you say her name. From a lot of people mispronounce it, basically. Now, this is the 4th book in the Windy City series. In this book, we follow Isaiah. He's a baseball player and our female character. And let me tell you, I read this when I went on a trip. I started the audiobook. I was physically reading along, just hanging out at the pool, all that stuff like that. I carried over to my long travel day of plane rides and of flights and all of that stuff. And I was sitting in my seat on the plane crying, okay? I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. Every single book I've read in this Windy City series has gotten better and better and better. I literally is oh, nothing can top Caught Up. Oh my god, that family aspect, I love it so much. I love those characters. I cried in that book. Play Along is probably going to be solid and it's going to be good, but I feel like Caught Up is going to be my favorite. I will say Caught Up and Play Along go back and forth. I think Caught Up has a little bit more of a one up on Play Along, just a little bit, a half a score, half a number. like just a tiny bit. I love a like marriage in Vegas thing where they have to like come home and then like deal with the aftermath of that. And him being a baseball player, a famous baseball player at that, you see that like he's struggling like a little bit. He's pined after this woman for years, right? She's been on the team, like working around the team, and he's kept his distance because she was engaged at a time, and now that she's not engaged for the last 8 months, he kind of left her alone. He was like, oh, she needs to heal, she needs to do her thing, right? Love that. But this one really hit it out of the park because you see that the pining just continues into their marriage, and they can't get it annulled because everyone thinks that it's real. She can lose her job and she needs this job. It's like her one time that she's having this job by herself. Her family didn't get it from her. She comes from a very prestigious family. And so there's a lot of like moving parts with this book that you see that she has to kind of like let her walls down a little bit after getting married to Isaiah, who, you know, like she had no feelings for previously. Like she really didn't think about him like that because she was in a relationship and stuff. So it's interesting to see one person where they've, you know, pined after this woman for 3 years, and then this other character, female character, that really hadn't thought about having feelings for him. So there's like a different, you're starting at different starting lines, right? So I thought it was just so good and like heartwarming and stuff like that, and I loved it. The found family in this series is one of my absolute favorites. I love seeing previous characters. I love seeing the found family. So is this a must read? Yes. Worth the hype? Yes. All the stars. All the stars. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is one that you can maybe skip. Dishonestly Yours by Becca and Krista Ritchie. So Becca and Krista Ritchie are well known for their Addicted series, the spin-off series, the 10-book series. Yes, I read that series. I do have a whole reading vlog. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Now, I've read a lot of their books. I've read that series, and I haven't read outside of that series. And I was very interested because this is the start of a new series. Completely has nothing to do with the Addicted series or those characters. And I will say this is a book that I still think about, but like in a not so good way. It's like I don't know what to think about this book. It's very interesting. You see our female character and her best friend. They want to get out of this life of crime. Their family is like con artists, and they've taught their kids to be con artists. And they're like, we're going to get away from the life of crime. We're going to live our life. It's going to be like perfect. We're going to like start over, right? We're going to work hard. We're going to work hard for our money and not have to worry about like all the other stuff, like people controlling, like their parents controlling them. So when her best friend and her decide to move and just leave and slip away, her best friend's brother comes along and finds them and follows them. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Now, him and our female character has had a thing in the past. So throughout this book, you kind of see that they're like, there's a lot of flashbacks to like then and now of like how things have progressed, but that kind of made me feel like nothing actually progressed with them. Like you just saw little moments, but it didn't actually like move the romance along. So it was weird that they did that, and that was a choice. This ends on a major cliffhanger with the romance and with the story. So it's very unique in that way, and I don't really know what to think about it because I don't know if I'm going to pick up the second book. Like I'm like intrigued, but I'm like, I don't know what happened in this almost 450 page book. Like I don't, other than like them figuring some things out, the romance, like him being like, yeah, I like you, let's do this, but then like not really let's do this. Like it doesn't end with them together, not even HEA. So I feel very conflicted. I gave it 4 stars because it was unique. I like the life of crime. I like the con artist thing. I like the little heist that they go on and the little adventures. But other than that, like nothing really progressed. So I'm like, I don't really know what to think about it. I honestly don't know what to think about this one. So like I wouldn't necessarily like be like, yes, you need to pick this up right now, it's absolutely amazing, go do it. But I also wouldn't be like, if it sounds good, pick it up and tell me what you think, because I feel like I don't really know. Like, do I recommend this? I don't know. This is one where I'm like, I don't know. The next one I have to talk about is Cross the Line by Simone Saltani, okay? So this one has been on my radar for a very, very, very long time. This got picked up by Berkeley, but before she was going to indie publish it, and I was so excited. It was like a week away from release, and then she was like, oh, by the way, I got a deal. It's not coming out until next year. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. That's fine. I'll wait. And now that it's out, I read it, and I have some thoughts. I gave this a 3.5 stars. So it's not one that I would be like, yes, pick it up right now. Like, you need to read it. Everyone in the world needs to read it. It's not the best thing I've read, but I did like the dynamics. And if you are a Formula One girly, if you love sports romances, specifically Formula One, our hero is a Formula One driver. And this is very Formula One heavy. I mean, our female character becomes his like Instagram manager, like PR kind of person, but also posting for him and coming up with content ideas. And she goes along with him throughout the world as the season's going on. And, you know, he's struggling with the team politics and this and that. And I did think that part was interesting. I love reading about Formula One, so I did enjoy that aspect. The romance was sweet. The romance was cute. They were hiding it because it is her brother's best friend. So they're hiding it from him, even though like the aspect of that at the end wasn't that big of a deal. He was like, oh, okay, whatever, fine. Like the stakes weren't that high, and you didn't really see that at the end of the book. I would say our female character didn't really grow too much. Like it was mostly his book and him growing and him figuring out what he needs to do, you know, where his place is on a team, like, you know, all of those things like that. Like how is he going to let this team principal step all over them and the owner and all this stuff like that. So the other good part that I did like, the other part that I want to mention is she has hypermobility, which is a chronic illness disability, right? So it's talked a lot, but I felt like it was kind of like skated over. And I say that because, and not in a bad way, but everyone in their chronic illness disability journey, it's a spectrum, right? You can have, you know, a couple of bad days, or it's like every day you wake up and you're in pain. Like that's two different ends of the spectrum. And with her, because I say it's skated over, I feel like it wasn't described exactly how intense or how prevalent it is in her life. So I felt like it was just like thrown in there, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I live with this and this is how I live with it. And that's great, because a lot of people probably see themselves in this book. As someone who has a little bit more of a severe disability and chronic illness, I didn't really see myself in this. I was like, oh, that's my good day. Her bad days are my good days. That's great. So it's, I mean, it's still good to see. I think the disability rep was solid. It's not the best. And chronic illness rep, it's solid, not the best. But I would say that if you are a Formula One reader and you have space in your TBR, pick it up. But it's not one that I'm screaming out the rooftops, go read this book. You know? The next one I want to talk about is Five Brothers by Penn Douglas. Okay, so I did meet Penn Douglas at Steamy Lit. I picked this up at the bookstore and I had them sign this. I'm a big Penn Douglas fan. If you guys know me, Credence is one of my all-time favorite books. Yes, you can judge me. I really don't care. I love that book. I will fight to the day I die. There is more than just sex in that book. It's a lot with our female character, and she goes through a journey, okay? And I will say, if you love Credence, you are going to love this book. I mean, obviously it's saying a lot because it is Penn Douglas, so I feel like comparing those two. Now, Credence is a 5-star read for me, all-time favorite, so this one comes in at a 4.5 star. It's not as perfect as Credence to me, and I'll tell you why. So, in this book, 5 brothers. You don't have to read Tris 6 Venom to read this book, even though the Tris 6 family, it's 6 of them. The female character gets her own book in the Tris 6 Venom book, which is a female. But in this book, it follows the rest of the 5 brothers. They all are different ages, and then our female character, Christian, and she is really going through it, okay? She comes from a prestigious family. They call her a saint. She comes from one side of the tracks, and all the brothers come from the not-so-great tracks. So they all have a reputation for all these different things. And she had a thing with the youngest of the brothers, Trace. And I really liked all of them. Now, this is not a why choose. Not a why choose. She chooses one at the end. And yes, I was happy with the one that was chosen in this. Like, me and Penn Douglas, we get it. Credence, I love the person that was chosen in that book. She has a thing with like 3 other people. And at the end of the book, one is obviously the winner of her. Not winner in like a weird way, but like who she chooses to be with. And in this book, I love the person who she chose to be with. And I feel like you can kind of tell about like 30% of the book, you're like, okay, I think I know who this is. But I do like the way that Penn Douglas wrote this book. So you get chapters from each guy's perspective, but it's like hers for a lot of it. You get 1 or 2 of one guy, hers, and it's like narrowing down who it is, right? So don't look at the chapter names because I feel like it's gonna be a spoiler. I mean, if you care, I did not want to do that, but I loved this. I had the best time. I read this in one day. I listened to the audiobook. The audiobook was fantastic. I literally read this in a travel day. I was coming back from Steamy Lit. I had a very long travel day, like over 12 hours. I was working on the plane, working in the airport and stuff like that throughout my layovers and delays, and I loved this. I had the best time. I really think that Penn Douglas does a really good job balancing sex and spicy scenes, and the reason why those spicy scenes are in a book. She balances that like growth and female character trying to figure out everything that's going on in her life and where she's going and what she's doing, and like each guy teaches her something. It could be a little small thing where it's like, okay, I need to not have like casual sex or something like that, or you know, they show her that, you know, she is worthy of this or that, or she can step out and do her own thing. You know what I mean? Like each guy will show something and teach her something in that way, but it's not like a teach me trope at all. But I mean, I love that. I feel like Credence was written that way, so I don't know if she modeled that after this, but I loved this book. It was great. It was fantastic. Yes, everyone needs to go read this. I loved it. Especially if you love Credence, go read this book. The last one I want to talk about is Quicksilver. Now, I do have a reading blog where I go through all of my thoughts, so if you want to see my journey with this book. You can go see that vlog I just posted this past week. Now, with Quicksilver, it is a very hyped fantasy romance. BookTok hyped it up. Callie Hart is living her best life right now with this book. It has been in the top, I think, 10 for the last like couple of weeks, and she deserves it. I love Callie Hart. I've read some of her previous stuff that I've loved too. Now, this is her first fantasy romance, and I will say, I gave this 4 stars. Solid 4 stars. I can see what she was doing. I can see where she's going, and I did really like this. Now, I will say that the first 50% of this book I slogged through. There wasn't very much progression. There wasn't a lot of her figuring things out. It was just kind of like, oh, I figured it out. Here we go. Great, lovely. But the last 50% really, I had the best time. Like, I read 50% of this book in one night. Like, it just started picking up speed and it started rolling and things started happening more, and they have all of these things that are happening. I don't want to spoil anything, but our hero, this is very much enemies to lovers. He rescues her and they go through what's called the Quicksilver, and it's like a different realm, which is really interesting. And I think it's hard to tell a fantasy romance story where there's different realms. Like, how do you do this? You know what I mean? And I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it. I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic. And I think that she just did a really good job setting up the fantasy. It was just more of like, I wanted to be shown rather than told what was happening at the beginning of the book. So that would be my only complaint and why I gave it 4 stars. But if you are newer to fantasy romance, I think that this would be great for you. If you are a prevalent fantasy romance reader, you will probably pick up some things that she could have done better, obviously, but this was her first fantasy romance, and I think she did a fantastic job with it. So like I said, I need everyone to go read this one as well. I did have the best time with it. I have been not in a slump, but I really enjoyed this ride. I mean, like, yes, I slugged through the first 50%. I only read a little bit each day, but it was still enjoyable. Like, I love the characters. I love our female character. She is very strong. She is very independent. She's lived her life and she's had it rough. And that shows and comes through in her character. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I would say pick it up. Definitely give it a try, considering it's so hyped. And if you've read it, I would love to know your rating and comments I would love to know your rating and your thoughts in the comments down below. But thank you so much for watching this worth the hype, worth the read. Let me know if you would like me to do this with some other new releases in August and September. Comment them down below because I would love to fit them into my TBR schedule and read them for you. But for the emoji, if you've made it this far, ooh, drop me a strawberry emoji for Dishonestly Yours, just because that was the first item that I thought of. So drop me a strawberry in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.